With enemies like these, Governor Ron DeSantis, FLA, is bound to make new friends among caucus and primary voters nationwide. A Florida newspaper has published a scathing editorial about the governor's education policies, and it seems that his team couldn't be happier.
If American parents learned anything from the educational catastrophe of COVID lockdowns, it's that teachers' union bosses are not their allies. As learning losses spiked, and isolated adolescents suffered from a host of mental challenges, union officials who should have been advocates of immediate reopening kept demanding delays and all manner of unnecessary changes to school buildings and operations in the name of safety, without any rigorous analysis of costs and benefits.
Mr. DeSantis would have none of it, driving an early reopening in Florida and pursuing a sensible strategy of focused protection. The idea was to help those most at risk while allowing people at low risk to live their lives and maintain a thriving society. He also resolved to shift power over education back to parents, where it belongs. Now a hostile media outlet is providing a helpful reminder.
DeSantis delivers a political smackdown as Miami Teachers Union struggles to survive, is the headline on a Miami Herald editorial that claims the following possible results from changes in law signed by Mr. DeSantis.
The results may be upwards of 30,000 school employees being left without representation to bargain for better pay and working conditions.
The state's largest teachers union, United Teachers of Dade, is close to decertification thanks to a new law that requires unions have at least 60% of union members pay dues, the Herald reported. The law, Senate Bill 256, was a union-busting 1-2 punch that not only raised the threshold for certification from 50%, but also prohibited unions from deducting dues directly from members' paychecks. UTD, which represents teachers in the state's biggest school district in Miami-Dade County, has gained 800 new members, but still failed to meet the state's stringent requirements.
But if teachers don't express overwhelming support for the union and don't choose to write checks to support it, why should it have the power to negotiate on their behalf? The numbers quoted by the Herald suggest that there are significant numbers of Florida teachers who don't want such representation. Maybe they simply disagree with the bosses about how to prioritize the interests of kids and teachers.
The Herald opines further.
The Republican anti-union spiel usually leaves out the fact that Florida, unlike many blue states, is among 26 states that have right-to-work laws. That means workers cannot be forced to join a union and pay dues as a condition of employment.
Apologies to the Herald if this column is missing a joke here, but the implication seems to be that opposing forced unionization is some sort of secret among Republicans, and that not forcing individuals to join makes one anti-union. Is Governor DeSantis supposed to be embarrassed that his state allows workers to make free choices?
The editorial then dredges up his opponent's "don't say gay" smear, which mischaracterized his efforts to ensure that sexual discussions in Florida schools are age-appropriate.
Media outlets have spent a lot of time this year publishing obituaries of the DeSantis campaign. The team at NBC's Meet the Press, for its part, decided that attempting to badger him into quitting was a good use of their viewers' time.
Yet the governor is still out on the trail making the case to voters. Unless those voters think Mr. DeSantis is only concerned with education, he is running perhaps the most fiscally responsible government in the country. Wednesday's column noted his latest effort to further shrink Florida's modest state debt. This is bound to make him increasingly likable to taxpayers.
This week's Miami Herald editorial seems like progress if the press is ready to engage the debate on policy. That's a fight Mr. DeSantis can win.
Meanwhile, on the left coast,
for some reason, columnist Danny Westniat of the Seattle Times seems to admire the media industry's big fact-checking outfits. But it's hard to argue with the powerful target he has selected for their consideration. The always interesting Mr. Westniat shares his nomination.
Governor Jay Inslee, for his repeated wrong claims about gas prices.
This is going to have a minimal impact, if any. Pennies, Inslee infamously said, about whether the state's new cap-and-invest climate system would raise prices as the pump.
Or, this memorable line, the oil and gas industry projections around any of this are halfway between hogwash and baloney.
It turned out the industry projections were right. The impact was actually a lot of pennies, somewhere between 25 and 50 of them per gallon. After denying this for months, Inslee has retreated to saying he got a faulty estimate from the State Department of Ecology.
Regardless of whether this was spin or an error, it sold a hugely consequential policy, My sense is there's little chance the climate bill would have passed through the state legislature as written, had there been an open and accurate assessment of its costs at the gas pump. The truth, which is that shifting away from fossil fuels is going to be really expensive, would probably have killed it.
Perhaps there might be national and even international climate policies worthy of attention from the big fact-checking outfits.
We hope you enjoy our talkradio.ca broadcasts. We are a not-for-profit service providing up-to-date news in an unbiased journalistic fashion. Please subscribe and like to make sure we reach our audience. You might want to play an entire playlist, produced each day on our best content. These stories are ideal on long road trips or as a daily current events update during morning coffee. Enjoy.